Hi everyone, I hope you are all keeping well, especially if you are in this second lockdown. Can't believe that we have only been in lockdown for 2 weeks today. But anyway, today on Talking Thursdays, I speak with Christian, our learning and development facilitator, again about how we're both coping in this second lockdown and a kind of a strategy that he has recommended to me, which is a Japanese concept about a reason for being, and it's called Ikigai. I don't think I've said that right, but please have a watch and find out. Hi, Christian. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Anna. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not bad, thank you. So, I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago now, on the day that we actually went into lockdown, the second lockdown, and we kind of spoke about how we were feeling about it, and you gave it some advice on, especially the winter mornings and things like that. And this time we're just going to have another little catch up and just see how we both are, and you're going to provide us all with a little bit of information as well. 2 weeks, but how's it been for you?
Yeah, I think it's been better than expected. And I know we talked about that last time, kind of, we've done it before, we'll do it again, and we kind of are armed with more information. So I've definitely felt less anxious or less concerned around it. Part of that is I have been following my own advice that I gave everybody last week. I haven't just been saying it and not doing it. So did things like I said, went out for winter walks and made winter food and enjoyed it and that, and obviously spoke to yourself, which was really helpful, and spoke to my friends about what it's going to be like this time round. It's been a strange one because this time round the reality has been a little bit sort of brought home to me, because maybe a day or two after the lockdown started, my brother tested positive for the virus. He's fine, and kind of it was an interesting sort of exercise in many ways, because obviously I was concerned and worried for him, because why wouldn't you be? But at the same time, when he came to me and said, oh, I've lost my sense of taste and I feel a little bit tired, I kind of knew what that meant or what that was, as opposed to, oh no, what's happening, sort of thing. So it's interesting, I think, and as we talked about, a maybe a positive side of this side round is we know so much more than we ever did, that when those things happen to us now, or we experience them, we can kind of meet them with a little bit more knowledge and feel a little bit more comfortable around them than we did previously, when this was just this new thing that we'd never kind of heard of, which I think is a I guess a good side of it. But how about yourself? How's lockdown been for you this time around?
It's been different, to be honest. A little bit out and about in some of our business. We're getting ready for Christmas. Even though some people say it gets a bit quieter, it's actually busier probably in both of our departments, because my boyfriend hasn't been at home during the day like he was in the previous lockdown, and weekends have become even more important now. We're spending time and doing things, and it's very easy. I think for us it could have been very easy just to fall into that pattern. We'll wake up, we'll watch TV, and we won't do anything. So it has been, it's been quite good getting out and about, going for a walk. We've been repainting a couple of rooms in our house, so it's just keeping ourselves busy.
The first time we were on lockdown, it was I spoke about it last time, that kind of endless more of time, and what do I do with it and how do I fill it? And obviously we talked about people suddenly becoming super productive or exercising loads, and talk a little bit about that in a while. But you, as you even mentioned then, more aware of how much time is potentially available and how easy it would be to lose that time if you didn't kind of keep track of it. And so, like you said, and I'll speak about this in a bit, like just doing little things to kind of keep yourself almost ticking over, right? And not just going, oh, well, I've got loads of time, so I can just sit and watch TV or kind of do stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely obviously been a change for all of us.
So how do you think life has changed as a result of the pandemic? Because I'm not really sure if this is to do with the question, but in my eyes, I kind of assumed, so myself and you, we were in the office yesterday, social distance and everything, but we obviously both had to drive there. And when I went out, I think 2 times I went out during the first lockdown, the roads were empty. There was no one on the roads. There was people walking, but nothing. Yesterday, I was stuck in traffic. I know the school run's still happening, but there wasn't a lockdown. There wasn't a pandemic.
So this time round, again, talked about it last time. Interesting that the rules have obviously changed slightly, because previously it was you cannot go to work unless you're a key worker. And even there were, whereas now there is the more, you can work if you kind of need to. And as you said, we were in the office yesterday with all, appropriate measures, and we had to be there for the job we had to do. And there were probably plenty of people in that boat as well. So first question I had for you, which is I guess a slight bit of background, is do you know what a blue zone is?
I don't. No.
Okay, so it's like a sociological or scientific piece of research that they did, and they found areas in the world that are called blue zones, where people consistently live to be over 100. So you've got Sardinia in Italy, Icaria in Greece, Loma Linda in California, Nicoya in Costa Rica, and then finally Okinawa in Japan. And obviously that's across what, 3 major continents? 4? Europe, North America, South America, and Asia. Therefore, I'll get my geography right eventually. And obviously the reason I think it's interesting to bring up is because I always think, people might disagree with me on this, but living to over 100 is probably quite a good ideal to have, right? Or at least living for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Is quite a good one to aspire to. And so I wanted to talk about something that people might have heard of before, and if you haven't, there are a million YouTube videos that you can find more information about. But it's a concept that comes from Okinawa in Japan, where people live the longest, the most, if that makes sense. They have like people over 110 consistently, and it's this idea which is called ikigai, and it means basically what is your reason for getting up in the morning. Kind of what do you do throughout your day? I know that seems like quite a large question to answer, right? Like the idea that you'd kind of distill it down into a singular thing, but obviously, as you said, sounds like quite a big question to answer, and I don't think it is one that anybody needs to singularly answer in an afternoon. I'm not expecting people to go away from this and go, what is my reason for getting up? Because that's quite big. But they talk about, so to take an example that's relevant to us because of the business that we're in, if you're a chef, your reason to get up in the morning might be to feed people. It could be that simple, but that idea, and I'm sure a lot of people that we know would say the same thing, that feeling that they get of feeding people and all of the things associated with that are kind of the reason they don't hit snooze, or the reason they kind of, because it's hard to get up in the morning, right? Especially now in winter.
Yeah.
It's hard to get up in the morning. Yeah. So you have to kind of have a reason that gets you in and out. And there are kind of some smaller parts to that which exist within the framework of this thing which is called ikigai.
So yeah, like you said, you sent me a couple of pointers, and the first one was staying active and do not retire, because I'm not gonna lie to you, Christian, at the end of a long day, I love sitting down on my sofa, and I call it my little nest area in the sofa, and I love put the TV on in my nest, having a cup of tea.
Yeah, and rightly so, right? But you hit the key point to that at the beginning, which was after a long day. And so obviously we mentioned it earlier, staying active and do not retire kind of means avoiding long periods of downtime, but it doesn't necessarily mean going hell for leather outside of that either, right? Kind of a more balanced approach to it. So, and that's physically and mentally. So for example, in Okinawa in Japan, there are people that are 100 years old that continue to work as on fishing boats every day, but they consistently do it over a length of time, and they make time for downtime so they don't have to kind of exercise in short bursts or in really intense areas. So obviously exercise is a key part of what keeps us healthy and what keeps us happy. And I know that obviously during lockdown, gyms being closed is a big thing for people. And I'm not one of those people because I'm not a particularly gym guy, as people might be able to tell from my frame. But I know some people kind of, that was part of almost their ritual of life, right? And like going to the gym and working out. I don't know how often you work out, or if you kind of have an area of exercise like that.
I used to at uni and school. We I exercise 6 times a day. Not 6 times a day, 6 times a week. Twice a day most days. And then you kind of go into adult life, and it's if you don't make the time, and unfortunately I don't.
Oh, absolutely. It's much harder to keep up. But I think the idea behind this, or like you said, the kind of do not retire, is being constantly productive and active without having to go, right, I'm going to do an 8-hour block of working as a day, and then I'm going to do 45 minutes of really intense exercise. And it kind of springboards a little bit off what we talked about last week about the need to be productive. So I don't know, we talked about feeling that pressure to be productive. I think there was an equal pressure on the first lockdown to get fit. Everybody was doing Joe Wicks in the morning, or everybody was doing a class, and everybody was trying to kind of find ways to fit that in. But this is kind of the idea of constantly doing things that keep you active. So as an example, I know it sounds really mundane and boring, but cleaning, organizing things around your house, and just doing them slower time. We have, one of the things that I think is a sort of a crazy invention is the idea of like do you know what a Roomba is?
No.
It's one of those Hoovers that's a robot, and you set parameters for your living room and it does it for you, which on the surface of it sounds amazing, right?
Yeah, well, my parents have one and they call it Robbie.
Robbie, that's brilliant. And obviously there's an application in there in terms of if you're, if you struggle to be active, it's great. But if you can take the time to manually hoover with a hoover, you'd be surprised how useful it is for your body and your mind to just do those things actively. And obviously for those of us working from home, that's, I think, a big problem that people are facing, is they feel like they're chained to a desk. You have a computer, you have it all set up, you get your tea next to you, you've got your phone, you've got your notebook, and you're like in a box. Yeah, like we are now, right?
Now, and I'm going phone, notebook, coffee, water. Yeah.
So it can feel a little bit constrained. So I often, if I take phone calls, I'll stand up and walk around while I take them, unless I need to look at a document while I'm doing it. But if you're having a chat with someone, or when thinking problems through, often do that, or like take notes somewhere else. Sometimes in the afternoon I will just go. I'm fortunate to have like a little garden space in the back of my apartment, but I go outside there with a notebook and a coat and write some stuff down just to kind of get up and move around. I also have, I don't have it on my desk. I don't know where I've put it because I usually have it. I have what's called a fidget cube, which is quite, I like those. They're good. But I guess kind of honing back in on the idea of being active, we're allowed obviously this time around to have unlimited exercise, I believe is the rule. So taking some time to go out and obviously responsibly, walk around, or just, like I said, being active and not doing that. Even in your evenings, right? You work a long day. If you finish it at 6 o'clock, there's still quite a long time before you go to bed. If you spend a lot of that time just sat down, you'd be surprised how kind of lethargic it makes you. So you don't have to then go, I'm going to do a 12-hour, well, not 12 hours, I'm going to do a 4-hour workout until I go to bed. But go for a walk or do something active in the evening, that sort of thing, both mentally and physically.
So we touched on food really, really briefly just then. And this next point, again, baffles me because only eat until you're 80% full.
Yeah. So in these areas you talked about, the blue zones, they have really specific diets, which we could spend hours talking about. And there are people that we know far more qualified than us to talk about nutrition and diets and things like that. But they are mainly plant-based and often high levels of omega-3, and that's one side of it, the diet. And the other side is, if you go to Okinawa or Sardinia in particular, they eat off smaller plates. Like the plates they will use they'll eat off are smaller, because it's essentially the idea that it's an idea, I don't know how true it is, but I'm pretty sure it's scientifically pretty verified, which is it takes around 20 minutes for the signals from your brain. It takes around 20 minutes for the signals from your stomach to hit your brain to tell you that you're full. So when you eat, this is a problem that I have massively, is I eat way too quickly all the time. I think it's because I used to be in the cadets, and there's this idea that like you've got to eat it while it's available, otherwise you've got no time to do anything. So I eat too quickly, and then I often find that I'll eat more than I need, and then I'll sit in my chair and be like, oh, I'm so full, why did I do that to myself? Right? We've all had that experience. So, and there's obviously, we talk about it a lot in our business, that a lot of what you do to do with eating is your mind. So another example is, so a lot of what you have is in your mind. So if you were to eat off a smaller plate and you eat slower, you'll eat less food and you won't be kind of, I guess, overly full, which then will feeds into that idea of you can be more active, you don't spend as much time feeling lethargic. And so that idea of kind of only eating that much, it's just an idea of a way of eating. It's obviously not the be all and end all, but just kind of an interesting thing to think about, I guess.
And the next point, I do feel like I'm very lucky with this. It says surround yourself with good friends. And my mum always told me, you know, when you're younger and you're at school, you just want to have as many friends as possible, don't you? That's just instinct. But actually, my mum said, if you have literally, Anna, a handful of just good friends, that's all you need. And she's so right, because, you know, last weekend I was able to meet up with my best friend from school, and we went on a walk, you know, and we're able to do that now. And with my group of friends, we've really I know we're not together, but we've almost connected a bit more over these lockdowns, because we've been checking in on each other, we've been doing quizzes, we've been talking more, you know. So I think that this one I can definitely say that I have done.
Oh, absolutely. I think the interesting one around this is that the video that I watched a long time ago that kind of inspired me around this is a guy that did a research around the blue zones, and he said, it was within the context of America, although I think our cultural values or the way we operate our lives might be quite similar in the UK, is that the average American has 1.5 good friends, they said, which is quite a low number. And in areas like Okinawa in Japan, most people will have a set up community group of at least 12 people that they can rely on, which seems quite large, I think, to a lot of us. And I do agree with you on the idea that you do need some very close friends that are kind of really there for you and really good support for you. And also, I talked about this a while ago in something I sent out, was the idea of what are called weak tie relationships. So kind of people you know through work or people you know through a social club that aren't, you know, you might not tell them about your really deep problems, but you can chat to them about things and work important, like you said. I've also been fortunate. One of my close friends from school, he also lives on his own, so we formed a support bubble together. It was his birthday last Sunday, so I went and spent some time with him, and it was really important. Otherwise, I'd have not seen that many people throughout the week. And like you said, kind of thinking about it within the context of the lockdown, there are still loads of things that we can do to keep up with each other. So you mentioned the good old quiz, which I'm doing on Thursday with my friends as well. And then, like you said, we've talked about it loads, but kind of reiterating, picking up the phone, calling people, or one thing that I found is that there are loads of communities online that if you have a particular interest, you could probably find some like-minded people to just chat to. And I did that across the last lockdown. So I picked up a hobby that I hadn't done since I was 12 years old, which was like model painting. I used to do it when I was really young and I hadn't done it since. And then I found a kind of community of people online that I used Reddit for that. If people know what Reddit is, it's like a big online forum and you can chat to people, and it was really nice to be able to have those people to still connect with whilst, as you said, we're on lockdown. But definitely surrounding yourself with people in the ways that you can is important.
And that leads quite nicely into the next one, and it's smile and acknowledge people around you. And I think I do have to say, and maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but there's such a difference. You know, when I go up and visit my parents, they live just outside of Nottinghamshire. You go on a dog walk, everyone says good morning, everyone says hello, hi, how are you? You know, it's just like you don't know them. Kind of go around my area and it's like, oh no, there's a person coming, walk to the other side, don't say hello. And I think it's just really important just to even just smile, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That kind of dynamic has always existed, right? And so my mother is from Wales, or at least, yeah, she is from Wales, and she's moved to the south many years ago, and she always kind of remarked on that a little bit. But she kind of always took the philosophy of kind of trying to bring that to people as opposed to necessarily falling into it and being like, oh, well, this is kind of how it works. So she's similarly always says hello to people on dog walks, even, you know, and even if they didn't say anything back, kind of a case of, well, you know, I've tried to connect with them as much as I can. And you are right that the smiling one is a big one. You know, I have a shop across the road from me that I go in to get stuff that I need, food and shopping wise, and I always chat to the people behind the counter in there. Nothing major, but just kind of have a good day, or how you guys getting on today. And I think, you know, it's as much for me as it is for them.
Yeah,
it's as much for any of us to kind of just smile and acknowledge. I know I've been very fortunate that people from around our business have kind of just chatted and, you know, given their time, which is really lovely.
Reconnecting with nature. And I think, you know, the government have almost helped us do this by saying you can meet one other person from another household outside, you know, go for a walk or do something outside. So I think that's allowed, especially me, to do that a bit more.
Yeah, it's definitely given people a reason to do that if they didn't previously. I guess one of the reasons I felt this was worth talking about was, you know, we're fortunate enough, I think, to live in areas of the country where there's a lot of nature still around, and obviously have close access to it. And I know that, you know, during a lockdown, I have friends that live in central London, and it can be quite difficult. And I guess the bit around that that I'd kind of thought about for a while is that London is actually, in the grand scheme of things, a very good city to live in terms of connecting with nature. It was built and designed by the Victorians to be kind of the first metropolis in Europe that could do both, because I think prior to that, industrial cities were just that. They were just industrial cities. So obviously there are parks, there are, you know, even just kind of trees lining the street. And I know it sounds a little bit kind of, for some people, they might go, well, it's just a tree in the street, kind of what's the point around it? But taking the time to notice, you know, one thing I've really liked about this particular time of year, and I know it's changing slightly, is I went for a walk on the weekend. The colours of autumn, the autumn trees, and then like we mentioned last time, winter frost in the morning, and kind of even some mornings when you get up and there's that like thick kind of mist or fog that, you know, if you've had to drive anywhere, you're like, oh, great, it's like misty and foggy, it's going to be a little bit worried. But actually just enjoying that as the kind of, it's the passing of the seasons and it's kind of what it's all about, I think is really important to just, as I said, these are kind of pointers or ideas, just as things to think about in terms of what we do. This
one I love. This is what I do every day. Unfortunately, something quite personal happened to me a couple of years ago, which made me realise that you've got to live in the moment. You've got to take every day that it is, you know. Now, you know, any opportunity that comes my way, I'm like, yeah, let's give it a go, let's do this. And I just think this is so important, you know. Maybe I, you know, before it didn't really occur to me that you should kind of live in the moment, you know. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do that, you know, next year, or that can be, you know, a target for whenever. But I just think it's so key to do this.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would massively agree with you. And there's kind of two sides to it, I think, which is the, like you said, the kind of being positive and enthusiastic and let's give this a try and let's not kind of discount stuff, or, you know, I'll do it tomorrow kind of, that's a future me problem, as they say, or for anyone that's ever watched How I Met Your Mother. But also the idea, I think, on the flip side is that, and we talked about this, at the moment in particular, the future is really uncertain. Which is a big worry for a lot of people. It's a worry for all of us, actually, I think is probably fair to say. But also giving that the appropriate amount of energy of yours and the time and kind of worry. So kind of thinking, well, there's only so much I can do towards the future in terms of what's going to happen before I have little scope to affect it. And so there's a school of thought which people might have heard of, called Stoicism, which there's a really good book called, I think it's Meditations, and it's written by Marcus Aurelius, who's a Roman emperor. And there's a part in there that says, this is slightly deep, but do not fear the future, because you'll meet it with the same weapons of reason that today arm you against the present, which I guess is kind of you've got the tools to do it now and you'll have the tools to do it in the future. So kind of don't worry about it too much.
Yeah.
in terms of how you go. But that's one side of it. But then, as you said, the other part kind of firmly being the seizing what you have and, like you said, reflecting and just enjoying it and taking the time to do it. And I think lockdown has probably made a lot of us reflect on that, because we often look at it, as you said, and go, well, I don't know if I can do it tomorrow in a kind of apocalyptic sense.
And the last one, which rounds it off completely, is follow your, I have no idea how you say it.
Ikigai is the word.
Ikigai.
Yeah, E like that. Yeah. So all of the points we've talked about are come together to form the idea of Ikigai. Like you said, what gets you up in the morning. It can often be summarized into what you love, what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you can be paid for, in terms of like an overall what you're doing. But I think, as I kind of prefaced at the beginning, it doesn't have to be something that's huge, and it doesn't have to be something that's particularly specific either. I watched another TED talk on this, and the one guy that was presenting said, my Ikigai in life is to bring people joy, which you kind of go, okay, but what does that necessarily mean? But that could be for you, as you said, or we talked about, making the effort to talk to people that you see, or kind of being kind to them in the way you operate, and taking time out to support people, that sort of thing. And kind of, I guess some of it is like kind of putting your mark upon the world, but in a way that isn't necessarily, I have to be famous, or I have to be influential, or I have to kind of have this grand idea. Almost the mark on your world, which I know is a little bit of a strange way of putting it. But I think, yeah, as I said, if you follow, not necessarily follow, because they aren't hard and fast rules, but think about some of those things, you might get yourself to a place where you can reflect and go, okay, what is it that I kind of do with my time that makes me go, yeah, I'm kind of happy and really kind of content in what I'm doing and what we are kind of all, I guess, chasing.
Thank you so much, Christian, for
welcome
coming and talking to me, and telling us all about this I can't say it.
It's okay, Ikigai. It's a difficult one to get your tongue around.